are at Seoul Chicken, and I'm here with Chaz Brown. So today we're obviously going to be talking about chicken, but specifically chicken wings. Let's just begin with what makes an awesome chicken wing.
I think what makes an awesome chicken wing is something that's crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. Like it still has some moisture to it, but not something that's really, really chewy. It's all about like contrasting the textures of the protein.
How do you know what a good chicken wing looks like?
Well, a good chicken wing shouldn't be like one of those jumbo guys, or the wing part should be about 2.5 inches long. And that's a bird that's lived a happy life and at this point isn't old enough to be like mealy and tough.
So counterintuitively, smaller is usually better.
Smaller is usually better. It's a younger bird, tender bird.
Often for chicken, you want to brine it. Is that the same for wings? Is there anything you need to do to prep?
If you want to brine your wing, I mean, you're obviously stepping your chef game up a little bit, and that's fine. We have a few brines here, one of which is our turmeric brine. We do a chili brine. We do quick brines because we have a smaller bird. What we do is want to impart a little bit more flavor into the wing. Obviously adding a little bit of salt too, kind of, you know, through equilibrium, kind of seasons the wing all the way through. We do about anywhere between 8 to 24 hours, depends on what animal we're doing. But the wing, it's going to be closer to 8 with the whole bird and go to 24 hours.
Where do you stand on the baked versus fried?
The baked versus fried, I don't really have a particular stance as long as you finish with a fry.
Right.
So what happens is, so
you gotta fry it sometime.
You gotta fry it. At some point you gotta fry it. And what happens is you always want to cook your wing at a lower temperature, which means you want to fully cook the wing and you want to dry it out a little bit.
Right.
So you want to cook it at a lower temperature, and then actually you want to actually freeze it if you can. And this is not making anything less fresh. What's happening is you're actually making the water want to go to the outside of the wing. So a freezer is actually one of the best things to dry things out. Then drop it in a 350-degree fryer. You're going to have a
while it's still frozen.
While from frozen is like it's a very southern technique, whatever you want to call it. Just cook it a little bit first, and then fry it hard later. And I promise you, you'll have a wing that, you know, people will be like, oh my God, this person makes the best wings ever.
But that's also great if you're having people over. It's like you can prep it all beforehand, stick it in the freezer.
Yep, and then you can just throw batches in that'll cook in 3 minutes rather than cooking something for 8 minutes that's burnt on the outside and raw on the inside. Yeah. And then it's like, oh man, I'm not going over so-and-so's house because they gave me raw chicken.
Terrible, right?
yeah.
And so let's talk about breading or sauce. You know, when do you put on breading, before or after frying, and when do you put on sauce?
We dredge, and we don't use flour here, so it's a gluten-free wing. So we use potato starch. It's a finer coating on the wing, so you don't have like those big chunks, and it gives like a really crispy texture on the outside as well. Less is better when it comes to that, and also it's better to let that skin be the crispy part, not the flour.
So what spices do you think are great? And you're going to show us a recipe as well.
So we're going to show you the gochujang buffalo. That's our version of the buffalo. So it has butter in it. So what you want to do is you want to have something with a nice fat on the outside and something that's not going to be too watery. If I had a bunch of wings and I poured water on them, they would become soggy. So you want something a little bit more viscous that's going to have trouble kind of finding its way into the nooks and crannies and saturating that wing and making it soggy. So you want something a little bit more viscous with a little bit more fat. So you're going to get something that's awesome and crispy on the outside, and that's what this sauce you're going to see in a few moments is about.
Awesome. Well, will you show us the steps?
Absolutely. So now we're in the kitchen at Seoul Chicken, about to get started. The first step is we're going to make the sauce. All right, so at the restaurant we have much bigger, as we call them, batches for our recipes than you would at home. So ours starts off with 6 pounds of butter. We cut it up in smaller cubes. So what we're going to do right now is throw the butter in here. So what the butter is going to help us do is toast some of our spices that we have. Got to get all this in here. So this takes a little while. We don't want to add too much color yet because we're going to toast our paste a little bit later on. So what we're going to do is get this nice and melted. So what we're going to do now is add a little bit of tomato paste. Right now we have 140 grams of tomato paste. And you want to toast that tomato paste in the butter. Maybe about 6 or 7 minutes. You know it's really whisked in when you're not going to see like so many like big chunks of the tomato paste kind of floating around. You kind of want it to be like a seamless pinkish sauce. So now that we're toasted here, we're going to add a little bit of our gochujang. Gochujang, this is 3 pounds. It's a fermented Korean spice paste, and that gives it the S-E-O-U-L in Seoul, which is the Korean aspect of what we're doing. You may not find it in your local like corner store, but most of your grocers you're gonna find it in that the Asian aisle. We want to toast this out a little bit as well. And the cool thing about gochujang, it's not overly spicy as well. You're not going to have something that's like incredibly spicy. What you're going to have is like these really complex flavors. You're going to feel a little bit of that funk from the fermentation. You're going to taste the chili rather than feel the chili. And then you're going to have that fat that's on there that's going to cling to the wing and make it like that really cool, you know, mouthfeel as well as texture on the wing. We're going to add a little bit of sriracha and a little bit of balsamic vinegar. 3/4 cup of each. So we're gonna turn this heat down a little bit, and we're gonna let this sauce kind of slowly simmer, constantly stirring it to make sure it stays emulsified. But we're gonna let it reduce a little bit till it reaches the texture where we know it's right for us, that clings to the wing. So now we have our sauce ready, so it's reached the consistency that we want. So what happens is when you kind of drop it in there, it doesn't splash too much. You can kind of see the surface tension, the viscosity of the sauce. You're not seeing big splashes, you're kind of seeing it just kind of fall down in there, and that's what you want to get when you're looking for the proper wing texture. All right, so we got our wings now. What we're gonna do is dredge them. Right now we have a blend of tapioca starch, potato starch, as well as a small amount of rice flour and some dehydrated garlic powder and a few other things that I'm not gonna tell you. So what we're gonna do is gonna get these guys in here, and then we're gonna lightly coat them with a little bit of our dredge. So if you're at home and you're not gluten-free, I would suggest adding a little bit of cornstarch to your flour mixture, and the ratio probably could be 60% flour to 40% cornstarch. So what we're gonna do is just hit these guys with this. This is just a light coating. We're gonna move it around a little bit in there, evenly coating everything. You wanna get all the excess flour off. This stuff is gonna sit in your fryer, and it's gonna cook really fast at a lower temperature. What's gonna happen is that's when you see like those brown bits that kind of blacken up your fryer. So what you wanna do is get as much of that off of your protein as possible. And this is our blanching process. So this fryer is much lower than our fryer we finished to fry. If you want to do this at home, you can actually line these out on a sheet pan, maybe with some non-stick spray or parchment paper, and you want to cook them in your oven for maybe about 15 minutes at 215 to 220 degrees. That's going to get most of the moisture out. And you see when I drop these guys into the fryer, you're not seeing a lot of bubbling or like violent reaction at the top. So you want to let these guys sit in here for about 8 to 10 minutes. And then what we're going to do afterwards is we're going to take these guys out. We're going to let them freeze for a little bit on a nice evenly across the sheet pan. So we have our frozen wings that we've blanched off. So what we're gonna do is add these guys to the fryer. This one's at about 350 degrees. So as they go down, you can see there's a much more violent reaction. All right, so it's been about 4 to 6 minutes, and you can see the wings right now are super crispy. What we're gonna do is we're gonna add them to our gochujang sauce we made earlier. So what we're gonna do is season the wing a little bit. Right when things come out of the fryer is the best time to season them. So what we're gonna do is line these guys up on a plate. We garnish them with a little bit of sesame seed, just to add a little bit more texture to them, and a little bit of Chinese celery. And there you have it. These are the Seoul Chicken gochujang buffalo wings.